Hey there, you're listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion. Here's your host, RJ Carbone.
And a high drive in the left center field. Stanley's going to watch another one fly. Are you kidding me? DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Knicks take a
Take this time to apologize to absolutely nobody.
At the wall. See ya! See ya! See ya! Mr. Nova.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes down and the game is tied.
Rose, you shook up the world again.
I did it again. But God did it, man. I really just have
To Brunson running away. Oh my! He has been the best player to put on that uniform.
Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
I mean, let's go, man. Let's go. This is fun. This is starting to get really fun, man. 7 wins in a row for the Knicks. They've won 17 out of 21. It's an 801 win percentage. 22-10 overall now. That's a 688 win percentage on the season. Just 1.5 games behind Boston. This was a game the Knicks obviously should have won by 40 friggin' points. But you know what? I did say at the end of the show the other night, I said it here. I said, while the Knicks should most definitely sweep this Wizards team in these 2 games they have to wrap up the year, if they don't, it's probably going to be because they dropped the first game, since it's the second of a back-to-back after a friggin' rugby battle against Orlando. You know, and the Knicks were coming into this game on a big winning streak as it is, so it could have been easy to say they were due, and, you know, they could have looked past their opponent, an inferior opponent. And for a good chunk of this game, they kind of did play like that. You know, the Knicks got off to a very slow start in this game. First quarter, no Nick but Mikal Bridges was really on. Towns was in early foul trouble again. Brunson missed his first 3 shots. The Wizards were up double figures or close to double figures. Brunson finally gets hot late in the period. He cools off in the second quarter. That's when Towns carries the Knicks back in it. The game's tied at halftime at 60. Second half comes, and Brunson carries the Knicks home with as impressive a performance you're going to see. He drops 42 points alone in the second half, including the 5 minutes of OT. In the fourth quarter, it kind of looked like Washington was going to pull away for a little bit, but Brunson and Towns get red hot together. First, it's Brunson helping erase an early 10-point deficit in the fourth, and then Towns gets hot after that. He eventually gives the Knicks the lead midway through the period. A little less than midway through. Hart and OG knock down some clutch baskets. And then Brunson hits some shots in the final, big shots in the final few minutes of the game. And then you have the potential game winner where, you know what? I thought the Knicks ran a great slob set. It looked like it was some kind of stack action where Hart screened up top. Cat slipped the back screen into a roll, and Brunson executed a perfect inbound pass. And then Towns got off a good look, and I don't know if it was blocked off the backboard, but it was right off the glass. It bounced off, just didn't drop. And so the game goes to overtime. Josh Hart with the big basket early. Later in the period, it's Mikal and Hart with consecutive baskets, which always helps me settle down. In overtime, I'm always wanting my team to score 2 baskets in a row, so I have a little bit of, like, room to breathe. Like, it's that first semi-cushion that really gives you that sigh of relief. And then again, the final few minutes of OT, the captain of New York City carries the Knicks home. Brunson scores 9 points there in overtime. And the Knicks win 136-132 in D.C. last night versus the Washington Wizards to move to 22-10 overall. But Jalen Brunson, obviously the talking point in this game. And that's what we're going to get into to start off this episode. Episode 769 here at BD4. We'll be right back. Let's talk Jalen. BD4 is available on social media for those who want to follow. You can find BD4 on Instagram at BD4Pod. You can find us on X at BD4Pod. And you can find us on Facebook by simply searching BD4. Hey guys, just a quick reminder, this podcast is also available in video format on YouTube. So be sure to go over to the YouTube channel, BD4, subscribe, like the videos, comment, and tell me how much I suck or maybe how much you like the video. We'd very much appreciate it. Don't have time to sit down and watch a video? You can listen to BD4 on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And you can also watch the video format on Spotify too. Bing Bong. Jalen Brunson last night. The King of New York City. December 28th, 2024. The day that the King of New York City dropped a double nickel. The second most points in a game in his career. The first most came last season in or against Phoenix. 55 points. 18 of 31 shooting. So he only needed 31 shots to score those 55 points. Because he was 16 for 17 at the foul line. Picked up 9 assists along the way. And he played 44 minutes for a guy who, is coming off a second of a back-to-back here, and he was a game-time decision. A game-time decision entering this game. He is just an incredible 3-level scorer. An incredible half-court bucket. His ability to navigate switches and capitalize takes elite skill and elite patience. I literally had to just pause the recording for a sec because the dog just came down here and it looked like it was about to piss on my carpet. We're good. Where was I? Kind of thrown off there. Brunson's ability to navigate switches and capitalize takes some of the best skill and patience you're going to see. How he's able to recognize when to attack, and then he's pairing that with just a mastery, an expertise to create space and get to his preferred spots. It's at a level that very few guys have in this league. The way that he can exploit a switch once he gets past the point of attack and gets to his left hand. It is so impressive to watch, and that takes so many things. It takes incredible footwork. Really, I know people hate to hear this word, but just incredible craftiness, skill, poise, and of course touch. Like the very second I was watching closely last night, the very second he gets by your outside foot, he goes up with that floater. The second he does it, the shot always falls too. It's a combination of patience and touch that it's just unmatched. Late in the fourth quarter to send the Knicks to overtime, he gets by Kalalabi. Right? He gets by him with the crossover in isolation. And then he goes up the very second that Kalalabi is behind the hips. Koulibaly. What the fuck you say? Koulibaly. For his 2 makes in overtime. He gets the SAR switch. Same thing. He goes up the very second SAR's behind, and he knocks it down. The first time he knocks down a floater. The second time he uses a fadeaway to gain separation. So it's no coincidence that he's got such great efficiency in the short mid-range for a small point guard. He was 15 for 20 on his 2s last night. That's 75%. On the season, he's knocked down 53% of his 2s. 61% from within 5 feet. 64% in the restricted area. This is a small guard. And his ability to draw contact and foul bait, it's greater than most point guards out there. Late in the third quarter, Washington's on this 12-0 run. They're starting to gain some separation. Brunson with a huge timely basket through contact. He runs high pick and roll with Precious. Makes a crafty spin and drive on Champagny. And that kind of just wakes the Knicks up a little bit there. He can hurt you from 3. Right? I know he's struggling lately from 3. But if the defense is in a drop, he's going to use that space to shoot. Right? Late first quarter, he runs high pick and roll with Precious. Valanciunas is in drop. Brunson pulls. The Knicks are within 1. I mean, I'm running out of words to describe, without sounding like cliche, how impressive it is watching this guy do what he does at this size for the third time. He can hurt you in so many ways. If you don't play the screen right, then good luck, because he'll reject it, take you out of the action, he'll use it. He's a pick and roll weapon. And most of it last night was between him and Precious running those 1-5s, not him and Towns. And we'll talk about why in a little bit. But Jalen Brunson absolutely gets the game ball from last night's win. Now has 12 for the Knicks this year. And on the season, as you can see, he is averaging some pretty great numbers for a guy who's playing next to another high-volume scorer. Brunson's dropping 26 and 8. 49% shooting, 41 from 3, 82 from the line. Excellence. Pure excellence. I want to go to the other side of the floor, because while the Knicks did win this game with 136 points, they gave up 132. And I know they had 5 more minutes of overtime. Kind of inflates that number, but their defensive rating was, I think, 118 in this game. It wasn't good. And it continues to struggle. So I want to talk about that when we get back from break in a sec. If you feel like supporting the podcast, you can Venmo at Robert-Carbone-JR-28. We really appreciate your support. So the Knicks defense, last 4 games, it's kind of starting to slip if you look at the numbers. They gave up 125 to Toronto, 114 to San Antonio. They gave up only 85 to Orlando, who they should have only gave up 85 to. But then last night, again, 132 to a terrible Wizards team, missing some key players. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, also lately, Karl Towns has been put back into a drop. And it's led to some tough results. Now, you can maybe get away with it against poor shooting teams like Orlando and Washington, but the Knicks didn't get away with it last night. Cat was in early foul trouble again, giving up some easy baskets at the rim, and the Knicks were giving up a lot of open three-point looks. And I'm going to continue to hammer this down until the day I see it happen. So forgive me for being beyond repetitive in what I'm about to say here, but I believe that Tom Thibodeau should be switching all non-Brunson actions. Or just should be switching everything here and there a little bit more. When the Knicks play straight up, when the Knicks play straight up, it's very often where they're chasing behind the hips, which is going to force them to rotate wing help, which leaves them vulnerable on those three-pointers. That's when they give up those three-pointers that everybody's crying about. That comes off the pick and roll, right at the point of attack, not switching that. And, when you're caught behind like that, and then if you don't bring help, now you're leaving Towns as that last line of defense in drop. I just feel like switching would make things a lot easier because you don't have to worry about fighting over the top, killing a second or two. You've got the personnel 2 to 5 to where you can get away with it, especially versus teams like especially versus teams like Orlando and Washington who don't have elite creators right now. It's too often where Knick guards are getting beat at the point of attack. They're struggling to get over. They're struggling to recover. And so when the Knicks do switch, there's been a lot of miscommunication. And I think part of that is just because of needing reps. It's because they don't switch often. It's not been working consistently this year where they're getting over the top. It's not been working consistently. Mikal Bridges, I thought, struggled defensively at the point of attack last night. Brunson, same thing. He's been hunted lately on pick and roll. Kind of a low urgency to get over the top on those screens last night. Brunson was getting caught on screens off the ball too. Late second quarter, he gets caught on a screen chasing Carrington in a motion strong set. If the Knicks switched that set, it was either going to be Mikal or Towns, who was closer to the level, who would have switched on to Carrington. Make it a lot easier to defend that way. But the Knicks didn't switch it, so I think it was OG who was forced to leave his assignment at the wing. He has to rotate over, one pass over. He brings help, and now the Knicks, they couldn't recover off the swing. And it was OG's, probably his worst game defensively as a Knick. He's been struggling offensively. And then, you pair that with his defense taking a big step back last night. Yeah, one of his worst games. He just, beat on back cuts consistently. Late third quarter, Kispert beats him on a back cut off a pass to Valanciunas. The Wizards extend their lead to 7 points at the time. There's a lot of miscommunication going on right now. Not switching on actions that call for an auto switch. Mid-third quarter, I thought OG left Malcolm Brogdon open for a three. And it looked like it was a miscommunication between him and Cat on the right wing. OG decides to go under with Cat and drop already. Malcolm Brogdon's wide open. I didn't love the urgency from him to fight over the top of some of those screens. Late first quarter, Kispert beat him off of Valanciunas' screen. Didn't like OG's effort level. Early third quarter, Kulalabai, whatever the there's a fucking way to say his name. I said it earlier in the show. I nailed it like one time. I forget already. Koulibaly. There's a early third quarter. It was a Koulibaly Sar, what looked like a pistol set. OG's slow getting over, and he's beat by Koulibaly. Over helping some last night, late third quarter. He's helping middle on a Carrington drive, and he didn't really provide much help. Didn't need to help. Sarr's left wide open on the three-point line. The Wizards take back their lead. Now, OG did pick it up in the fourth quarter. But overall, I thought the Knicks defense, it's continuing to get tore apart at the seams lately. It's appalling to me that a team with wing personnel like this does the least amount of switching in the NBA. And I think that might haunt them in the postseason if they're not willing to consistently get reps as a switching defense right now in the regular season. The rebounding has been poor. Too many offensive rebounds given up lately. A lot of second chances. I don't spend a lot of time talking about rebounding just because I know that's not part of their identity this year. That's going to sound like an excuse. But I expect them to continue to be bottom third or wherever they are in rebounding. Maybe that'll improve with Precious here now, but I don't know. It's the switching I want to say. On the other side of the floor, there's kind of a developing theme, maybe a problem, where when defenses put the big on Josh Hart, the Knicks struggle. It neutralizes the Knicks pick and roll game because the big remains in the paint. Right? And this is something we brought up in the preseason. How, we were talking in the preseason how Towns being here over Mitch it's gonna bring the big up in pick and roll because he's a pick and pop threat where Mitch isn't a threat, so the big's gonna stay near the dunker spot. But we also mentioned that the defense could easily adjust and throw their big on Josh Hart, and that's what you're starting to see. You're starting to see Josh Hart. You're starting to see teams put the big on Josh Hart. Switching defenses. Defenses that switch will put the big on Hart, and they'll put the small or the wing on Cat. And versus Orlando, I thought the Knicks, one of the things they did do well there was use those guard screens a decent amount to clear the paint of the big. Right? I thought they actually brought Hart into the action to screen that Goga switch. Or they use Hart on the ball to initiate pick and roll, right? They just got him in the action to get the big up, right? Both of those things took the big out of paint help. But versus the Wizards last night, I think Tibbs, for whatever reason, went away from that. And he relegated Hart to this corner spacer role. Except for a little later in the game, overtime, the Knicks went to Hart to screen more, but for the most part, they went away from it and they spaced out Josh Hart, which is not what you want to do when he's got the big. It's an ineffective offense because the big, in this case it was Sarr, completely ignores Josh Hart and he's anticipating help in the paint and he just sinks. Instead of coming up to the level, he's in the paint. So I will say against Orlando, the Knicks didn't post Towns as much. They didn't post him a lot versus Suggs. But against Washington last night, there was a lot more posting when Brian Keefe put the wing or small on Cat. And it led to some solid results, but, I think Keefe also did a nice job countering. Right? He switched it off the entry pass with Sarr and help off of Hart to get Sarr back to Towns. I just think overall, for the Knicks to get where they want offensively in the long run, they have to figure out this scheme. They have to. And there are multiple ways to do it. Again, use Towns to post smalls and make better reads on if the pre-switch is coming. And cut off of him. Don't just have these stagnant post-ups where you isolate him and everybody else ball watches. No, wedge screening and weak side movement. Because if the Knicks do more wedge screening, now the defense is forced to help to the cat post up. And then the Knicks can make a weak side cut off the help. And now the defense is broken down. You got an easy look. You actually saw that. The first quarter, with 7 minutes left in this game, Cat got a very easy look at the basket because he comes off an OG wedge screen to post the small. And then Sarr, who is roaming, brings help to Cat off of Hart. Now Hart makes the weak side cut with Sarr ball side. Brunson hits Josh Hart, and then Josh Hart hits Towns because Sarr rotated back to Hart. Towns gets an easy layup. You know, you can use that. You can spam those Hart pick and rolls, whether it's using him as a screener or an initiator. You can use Hart in empty side actions as a roller. The big clears the paint. The strong side's wide open. Hart rolls hard so he can beat the weak side rotation. Or if the defense, if Hart makes the skip pass to the second side, there's a good chance that weak side rotation is going to have the weak side defense is going to have to recover now, and they're going to be late there. So, use Hart in horns out offense. If you use him in horns out sets, that brings the big out. Anything to get the big out of the paint when you put it on Josh Hart. So you have to include him in the action. Whether it's on the ball, screening, initiating, cutting. Make sure that big is always out of that paint so you can go to the basket a lot easier. So I know I sound like, excuse me, I sound like a mess. I know I sound like I'm complaining after a 7-game win streak and a game where Brunson drops 55 and the Knicks drop 130-something points. But, this is 1,000% a defensive scheme that you're going to see in the playoffs against the Knicks. Do you want to be an NBA Finals favorite? You're going to be treated like such. You're going to have these expectations. You're going to have to be near perfect. Boston is going to play the Knicks this way without Horford. That's going to happen. That happened in game 1. They have wingspan. They can switch 1 to 5. They've got tons of gritty defensive players who are capable of sliding up, and they've got a guy like Horford who's capable of sliding down to wing. Cleveland's going to play the Knicks like this as well with Jared Allen. He'll be on Hart. They have tons of wingspan. They can switch 1 to 5. Orlando, when they're fully healthy, will play the Knicks this way, just like they did with Goga Bitadze, because they've got tons of wingspan and they can switch 1 to 5. The Knicks have to be able to go to their counters. That's not always been a strength of Tom Thibodeau. So that's something I'm going to continue to watch out for when they play switching defenses that are able to switch their matchups a little more non-traditional. Speaking of Tom Thibodeau, even after a great fun win last night, the minutes police are back out. These minutes are starting to pile up on these pro athletes, man. on these best, most conditioned athletes of the world in all sports. Guys who are trained to sprint for 48 minutes back and forth. And I get it. You can also make a case that's why they're, McCall played 47 minutes. Excuse me. He played 47 minutes last night. 5 straight games where he's played at least 40. Brunson logged 44 minutes in a very heliocentric offense last night, having to do a lot. Cat played 44 minutes. OG Anunoby played 42 more minutes. He's playing 36 minutes per game, and he's played in every single game. Maybe that's why he's got some tired legs lately. And at the same time, I'm like, Tibbs is trying to win as best as he can. A bench of campaign, Deuce McBride, Precious Achua is not being used a ton. No shit. They're nice. It's an okay bench. But it's Tibbs is going with his best guys, and that's always been what he's done. And I'd rather tax the starting 5 and win than play the bench and lose. Especially with Brunson, the only one doing much last night. I do wish that Tom Thibodeau would run 10. Don't get me wrong. More Cam and Sham, right? More champagne would be nice. But I think Tibbs would just rather split their minutes than play both because he's always loved size. That's what it comes down to. He's not playing all these guards because he wants size out there. He wants his 3 wings out there at all times. So that's just going to be the way. This is nothing that's shocking me. You know, I could sit here and hammer it down and say he needs to do this. And I understand that, man. I do. But I don't think it's the end all. I don't think I don't emphasize it as much as Knicks Twitter does. You know, I think the same idiots who blamed last year's injuries on Tibbs are just the same ones running their mouth right now. You know, the Mitch injury wasn't a Tibbs injury. Neither was the Brunson one. I wouldn't even say the Randall one wasn't either. He was trying to secure a win against the Miami friggin' Heat. You can blame iHeart and DiVincenzo. Sure, that's Thibodeau. But, like, okay, welcome to the NBA season, man. Like, this is what I say. It's a grind. There are ebbs and flows. Fatigue is going to play a factor. You can't avoid it. Tired legs are normal. Nobody goes through the season 100% healthy with 100% of their energy 100% of the time. That's not how that works. So I would love to have this perfect world, but Tibbs is going to prioritize winning. And later in the season, if the Knicks wrap up the seeding they want, and Tibbs is still running these guys out there, then yeah, it's a different story. You win. We'll have that conversation when it comes to it. But in December, in late December right now, no, we're in the midst of a win streak. We're trying to keep winning and stay hot. No, I'm not going to ask him to rest some players in the middle of these. Keep playing your guys. I don't know, man. I just think some of this, the mentality with this generation can be backwards. It really can. You know, some of you would literally rather lose a game and be happy because one of your best players sit with load management next to his name than win a game that counts towards the Eastern Conference standings. That's crazy to me. I could never prioritize that. Somehow along the lines, you guys lost the edge carried down from the generation before you. Something happened there, and I don't know how. But this younger generation, I'm starting to sound like I'm friggin' 80. Jesus Christ. Not even 30 yet. I don't know. Let's completely change the topic. Precious Achiuwa. Thought Precious Achiuwa was the best among the Knicks bench last night. 7 rebounds, 2 assists. He was a +6 in 19 minutes. 3 game balls for Precious on the season. They've all come in a row. So San Antonio, Orlando, and Washington. Played some solid defense. Had some bad moments, but a fantastic pick and roll game with Precious and Brunson last night. They had to run. It had to be in the double figures. The amount of pick and rolls I saw them run together when they shared the floor. He had the dunk of the year. How did I forget about that? Was it the second quarter? Third quarter? Jeez, did he throw that shit down. Through contact. Whew. That was a poster if I've seen one. That was awesome. And I believe Jericho had one earlier in the season. I don't know if it technically counted as a dunk because he kind of just threw it in the cylinder. Precious actually dunked. That was an insane dunk. So Precious Achiuwa gets his 3rd game ball, and he's been solid through 11 games, averaging 5-7 in 1 steal, 1 block. He's a +2 in 20 minutes per game as well. I think that's it. Up next for the Knicks. Up next is Washington once again. The Knicks have the Wizards tomorrow night in a 7 p.m. game. The final game of 2024. And then they're home against the Jazz on New Year's Day. And then they go to Oklahoma City on Friday the 3rd to play the Thunder. That'll be a test. So, Washington's tomorrow night. Let's win that. Wrap up the year on a strong note. The December Knicks, possibly better than the January Knicks. We'll be right back. We'll get back and wrap it up with our trivia. Stay with us. Do you enjoy Yankees baseball but are tired of hearing me yap? I have a suggestion for you. Go check out Yankee Crazy Podcast. Greg Gill is a Yankees podcaster on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and he's now selling merch. Go to yankeecrazy.myshopify.com. Stay connected with us. Visit BD4blog.com to explore our blog, tune into our latest podcasts, and follow us on social media. Thank you for being a part of this community. Okay. All right, this episode's question of the day here in episode 769, our trivia question. Jalen Brunson scored 55 last night. How many games with 40 or more points does he have in his entire career, including the postseason? It's multiple choice. So is it 10 or more, 15 or more, 20 or more, 25 or more? All right, so one last time. Jalen Brunson scored 55 points last night versus the Wizards. How many games with 40 or more points does he have in his entire career, postseason included? 10, 15, 20, or 25? Yeah. Yeah, and all right, hold on. I'll figure it out later. Sorry. Just take her out for me. That damn dog, man. All right, let's end this. I appreciate you all tuning in. Sorry. The amount of fucking times I get interrupted here. Dogs pissing in my room. People tell me dogs are pissing in my freaking studio room here, and I got freaking. All right, let's upstairs. Let's wrap this up. Episode 769. I appreciate you all tuning in as always. Knicks win. Final score of 136-132 over the Wizards in overtime. One more against the Wiz tomorrow night, and then we will wrap up 2024 and head into 2025. So I appreciate you all once again, and I'll see you soon. Later. Yeah, I seen it. Well, if you made it this far, that means you listened to or watched the entire episode. Thank you. Just remember to follow, subscribe, download, rate and review, and all that fun stuff to help out the podcast, and I will see you in the next episode of BD4.